What's up, guys? Welcome to the PFN Dallas Cowboys podcast. I'm Jess Navarez here with Dalton Miller, who is proudly sporting his Dak Prescott jersey. Gee, Dalton, I wonder why you're doing that on this Victory Monday, because we record on Victory Mondays and every Monday, and you should always check us out. But Dalton, how are you feeling this morning? I know it's not morning for you anymore, but how is that post-Eagles win feeling for you?
So I went to sleep before the game. Just full transparency, guys. I really enjoyed my sleep, and I'm not going to get it very much of it with a baby coming in probably a week or two. So yeah, I went to sleep and I woke up and our internet was shut off. And I was like, what is going on? Well, it turns out I forgot to pay the bill, and that's a problem. So I woke up and was incredibly angry because not only was that turned off, but cellular was turned off. So I woke up and had no idea what had happened, what was going on. And so we got it paid and they turned it back on. I immediately went and turned the game on and didn't look at social media, didn't see what the score was or anything. I avoided Slack, so I didn't see your post-game stuff, and I just dove into it, and it felt so good. And guys, I don't know if you guys really know this, but like when you do this for a long time, when you cover the NFL, and I haven't even done it for a very long time, it's been a couple of years at this point, but your fandom starts to dwindle a little bit. You have to become a little bit more objective unless you are like one of the Homer type people that have jobs doing that. At other outlets, I think the Cowboys do a good job of not doing that with their .com or the people that work for Dallas Morning News. But I would just like to say that it made me a very proud Cowboys fan to watch them absolutely obliterate the Philadelphia Eagles. It just felt great.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with you there. I think when you do this and you do it every day, especially when it's for one specific team, fandom does dwindle, but that doesn't mean you don't cheer on great victories like that one that absolutely deserve it. Because let's talk about the hype that was surrounding that game for a second. Not only was there the narrative that the Cowboys can't beat teams that win, or the Cowboys can't beat good teams, or that the Cowboys are the fraudulent team, but then you have the Eagles enter the chat last week and they decide to lose to the 49ers. And then that started the conversation of, oh, maybe they're not as good, but they're still an elite team. And people throw that E word around like it's nothing these days. And then they're 2 weeks in a row of losing games. And it just feels so nice.
Yeah,
Very happy for the Cowboys.
And in the preview pod, I talked about it. I felt really good about this game going into it. And it really didn't have anything to do with what had happened to Philadelphia against San Francisco. I just thought, San Francisco just bludgeons teams every single time they play them. It is what it is. Unless they are on their 3-game losing streak, they're beating teams by multiple scores. And so I just felt good because I felt with my whole chest that the Dallas Cowboys were a better football team than the Philadelphia Eagles. I think we've seen, the Philadelphia defense specifically really suffer this year, especially up the middle. But, I mean, even guys like James Bradbury not playing as well in Sean Desai's defensive scheme. He's a cornerback who is over 30 years old. Darius Slay is still playing well, but you need a village in that Vic Fangio-style defense. Safety play has not been fantastic for them. The linebacker play has been atrocious for them. And so it's a defense that was really struggling, and it showed against an offense that is on fire right now.
Absolutely. And I think, too, it just goes back to those old worn-out narratives that the Cowboys are not a good football team. And I think so many people just hold on to that and harvest it. It's not fair, especially when you have the caliber at the level this team is playing at, especially Dak Prescott. We'll get into that. But overall, I mean, 33-13, you didn't allow the Eagles to score an offensive touchdown. Sure, the game was not perfect, but it was dang near perfect that first half. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen the Cowboys play a nearly perfect game to that extent like they did in the first half of that game. So we'll get into that. But Dalton, let's start with your hot or not take for this post-Eagles win. What is it this week, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, I think saying that Dak Prescott is the front runner for the MVP isn't really a hot take. I think the more spicy take is that if he plays well, even if they don't end up being the 1 seed in the NFC, and I know a lot of people think, whoever the 1 seed in the NFC is, that's who's going to win the MVP. It's going to be him or Brock. But I really do think that if he plays well against Buffalo and against the Detroit Lions and against the Miami Dolphins, whose defense is playing really well, I think as long as he plays well in those games, I think that he runs away with the MVP award, even if they lose a game or two out of those. So I think Dak Prescott has set himself up to do something that has not been done in Dallas for a very long time.
Very well said. Let's that's a really good transition to the playoff picture where it stands right now, going into week 15 and what that win did, because your Dallas Cowboys are now sitting pretty at the top of the NFC East, 10-3, tied with Philly, 10-3 as well. However, the 49ers jumped up to the top seed, the NFC, and then it's your Dallas Cowboys. Now, here's the thing. In order for the Cowboys to really determine their own fate, they obviously have to win out the rest of the season. But it's not really just up to them anymore. It's going to heavily depend on what the 49ers and the Eagles do specifically here in these next few weeks. So I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's not very likely, especially when you look at how easy this Philadelphia schedule is ahead. Philly does not have hard games like the Dallas Cowboys do going into these last few weeks of the season. So if Philly just wins one more game, essentially, well, they're clinched. They're in, and it's kind of just done at that point. More than likely, the Cowboys are going to end up with that 5th seed, which is where they were standing last week. And it's not a horrible place to be in. It just goes back to show you that the loss to the Eagles, the first loss, and then the loss to the 49ers really coming back around to bite them in the butt, like we talked about when they happened, right? So those were 2 games that really determined the fate of their playoff seeding, because if you go back, even if you win one of them, you'd probably have a better chance at this point to have a higher seed in playoff seeding. So regardless, though, Cowboys head into the postseason. I mean, that's not even debatable.
Yeah. And I hope that everybody, I don't know if anybody who is listening is religious or not. I don't know if anybody is a witch out there, but if you have to do witchcraft, if you have to pray, if you have to send positive vibes for Geno Smith's knee groin, please do, because we need Geno back against the Philadelphia Eagles, because we need Seattle to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. And we've already seen the Washington Commanders, who I believe, do they still play the Commanders, or is it just
the Giants? It's just the
twice.
Giants.
Just the Giants twice.
It's just the
so
Giants. But weirder things have happened. Weirder things have happened before. And, I'm not saying that it's going to happen. I'm just saying if the Eagles go 3 weeks in a row of not winning a game, it's a very deflating feeling, because you could feel, even going back to watch that game last night against the Cowboys, it was the first quarter, and you could see how deflated that offense looked. So look, it's hard not to get in your head. You were at the top of your game. You're getting humbled week by week. The Giants could throw something at you that maybe you're just not expecting. I don't know. It would be great. It would be great for the Cowboys if they did that. Again, it's not very likely. Cowboys have the Bills, the Dolphins, the Commanders, and then who else? Who am I forgetting? Who am I forgetting?
I'm sorry, I was replying to a message. Can you repeat?
The Cowboys have the Bills, Dolphins, Commanders here in the next few weeks. Who am I forgetting?
The Lions.
The Lions. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bills. It's Bills, Dolphins, Lions, and then they finish off with the Commanders. Yeah.
Right. So a little bit of a harder task than the Eagles have, but
if they win all 4 of these final games, no matter what Philadelphia does, we have to feel amazing about this Cowboys team going into the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Which is setting up for huge disappointment, but that's neither here nor there.
Dalton, do not.
I'm a 31-year-old Cowboys fan, Jess.
We're not doing that. It is a happy day. We don't need that negativity. And I'm literally going to look at you if that happens, and the Cowboys have a fantastic postseason run, and I'm going to do the Michael Gallup. shrug at you. Like, I have no choice at that point. But let's get into this matchup. Let's break it down a little bit. 33-13, your Dallas Cowboys find themselves victorious. Their 15th straight home win, the longest streak in the NFL still. So that's not an easy feat, by the way. And it's so interesting to me, even in the last couple of years, I'll say, to see how AT&T Stadium has really evolved to give the Cowboys a home field advantage. Because here's the thing, people travel well to AT&T Stadium no matter what fan base it is, because it's an experience. It's an experience to come to Dallas. You get to explore a city, you get to do a lot of things. There's a lot of things to do here when you're visiting. It's a really sexy city to come explore. You have the Star in Frisco that you can go tour. You have AT&T Stadium you can go tour, and it's not just a game anymore. It's a whole experience that people want to buy into, and that's hard because it's not just Cowboys fans that want to do it.
Mhm.
But I'm very happy that Cowboys fans have found a way to reclaim their home turf and give the team that home field advantage. Although I will say, can we still work on just not doing anything when the offense is on the field? Like, do people actually know that that's a thing, that you be quiet when the offense is on the field? Because sometimes doesn't feel like it, because it's not
Yeah.
even the opposing fans that are doing it, guys. It's you guys. And much love. Obviously, we love you guys, but like, let your team play. Let your offense do its thing. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball since we're already talking about it. Um, Dalton, your MVPrescott of the game, he had 271 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. He was 24 of 39 attempts. He had a quarterback rating of 99.4 in this game. Dak Prescott continues to play lights out, but something notable about this game, the run game found life once again. What was your overall analysis of what you saw from this Cowboys offense?
Yeah, it's really funny because when you look back at it, Pollard's numbers and Rico's numbers, they don't look great, but I watched that game and I did really feel like the run game was doing its job. 11 yards was the longest run for Tony, 9 yards for Rico, and I think the 9 yard run I remember vividly because he shook like three people in the middle of the hole. That was a fantastic run. But like getting Cavante Turpin the ball on that end around on third and short was fantastic. Get the ball, continue to get the ball to CD Lamb on those, type of similar plays. Um, and I think that you are really cooking with a little bit of versatility in the rushing attack. Dak using his legs when he absolutely has to has been big for them as well. So I'm happy with where we are kind of with the run game because I think more than anything, what it's doing at this point is complementing what the Cowboys are doing in the passing attack. The Cowboys live and die by that passing attack. And that's okay because when it's working the way that it is right now, you can do that. It's like Duke for all of those years in the NCAA being able to just out 3-point shoot everybody else in the nation, and that's how they won games. When it doesn't work, like we've seen against San Francisco, it looks really ugly. It's a terrible product. And that's why you want to have a run game like the San Francisco 49ers do, so you can lean on that when your passing attack is not working. It's not what the Cowboys have, but I think that with how efficient the passing attack looks right now, I don't think that's too bad of a thing because you're looking at big receptions from Fergie. Lamb's making big plays. Gallup had a fantastic play last night down the field. And then Brandon Cooks continues to show up as well. So I think that what they're doing right now offensively is working for this iteration of what the offense is.
And you know what I love about this is anytime you ask Dak Prescott, well, what's working for you so well? Why are you finding this kind of success with this offense? Is it the receivers? Is it the tight ends? Is it the backs? I mean, you could ask him this question a million different ways, and his answer always remains the same. One, it's the guys around you. And it was funny because they asked him this on the NBC broadcast when he got the game ball, one of them. And I already knew what he was going to say. It's the guys around me. But he also always goes back to what the offensive line is doing. Keep in mind, this was only their sixth game working together. And I always like to tell people this because this is an offensive line that didn't have a training camp. This is an offensive line that started building that continuity in the middle of the season, really, because, like I said, you're only 6 games in of seeing your starting offensive line work together to build that. So, yes, there's been frustrating moments with it, but really what you're seeing is the progression come right when it needs to. And that is where it's trickling down from. You get a run game from it. You get a Dak Prescott that's comfortable in the pocket, but gets his looks off, and then he can escape the pocket if he needs to, if nobody's really open and he's using his legs more. It's just so great to see it all clicking at the same time where it needs to. But let's also preface this by saying Terrence Steele, yes, didn't have his best game. Again, there's improvement. However, I do want to say, I want to give him his flowers for saying he's the only starting offensive lineman that has played every single game this season. So I can imagine, especially coming back from that knee injury as early as he did, he's definitely hurting. He'll talk about it. He tells you about it, but he also is working to get better. You've seen improvements. It's obviously not where you want it to be, but man, he grinds. So when we're talking about that offensive line and, maybe he's not the strongest link in it. He is well aware of that, and I really you don't meet people as often as you do like Terrence Steele that works as hard as he does. So just want to throw that out there because I saw y'all's tweets last night. I see ya. I'm lurking on that Twitter during the game.
We
Let's go.
also again, we always forget that the other side of the ball gets paid to play the game too, and that Hassan Reddick guy is pretty good at football.
Yeah, we do. We forget about that, right? I wanted to go back to the receivers real quick and let's go through some numbers here. Jake Ferguson had 5 receptions for 72 yards. CeeDee Lamb had 6 for 71. Michael Gallup, 3 for 48. Tony Pollard, love to see him involved in the receiving game, had 7 receptions for 37 yards. B. Cooks, 2 receptions, 37 yards as well. When you're looking at the ball distribution in this game, I really can't pin 2 games together that look similar with the ball distribution, especially with the receivers. Do you like where you see it now, especially because it's not just CeeDee Lamb like you were seeing more so post San Francisco? That was the biggest thing, was CeeDee wanted the ball, he was getting the ball, and that kind of meant nobody else was. Do you like where this is now, or do you kind of want to veer back to getting CeeDee the ball a little bit more?
No, it'll all just be situation dependent. I think when you see teams that run a little bit more zone, this is kind of the ball distribution that you'll get. You'll get Fergie probably being at number 1 or number 2 on targets with CeeDee Lamb. But when you're playing man-based defenses, CD is going to get 15 plus targets a game, most likely, just because he's the guy who, no matter what in this offense, is going to get open. He's not the fastest guy in the world. He's not the quickest guy in the world, but he does everything so well. And I think that that's what made him such a sought-after NFL draft prospect back in the day. And it's what is making him right now a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. So I think when you get those man matchups, he's going to be the guy that wins, and Dak is going to look at him. But I think when you have teams that run a little bit more zone, this is the type of ball distribution that you're going to get.
That's for Jake Ferg, tight end 1.
Yeah, you missed a stat. You missed Fergie's hurdle. You didn't bring it up.
Oh, I was going to right now. I was going to say it's a bird, it's a plane, it's an air Ferg. But that's not here nor there. I'm just saying it was ready. It was coming. Just
maybe we should workshop these before the podcast.
The puns just come when they come. Like I can't control it. It's just in my DNA at this point. I see an opportunity and I take it. Jake Ferguson, 2nd year leap that I absolutely expected from him. I just cannot believe how much better he continues to get week to week at this point, because this is what you wanted. This is what you wanted out of a starting tight end, a young one at that. What makes Jake Ferguson such an elite tight end and so rare for a Cowboys tight end specifically? From what you've seen, you said you're a fan for the last 30 years. Mm-hmm. What makes him so rare, so special compared to what you maybe have seen in the past?
Well, I think the fun thing about him, and I said it, I tweeted it this morning when everybody else was still asleep, but I said that Ferguson goes into every game trying to figure out who he's going to hurdle, not if he is going to hurdle somebody. Like, it's just, that's, if he gets the ball out in the flat, he's going to jump over a corner. It's going to happen. But I think with Ferguson, it's the sneaky athleticism. At the end of the day, it's the sneaky athleticism, because he didn't test like an unbelievable athlete at the NFL Combine. He was a decent athlete overall. But what makes him so good, and what makes these Cowboys tight ends so good right now, is that, yes, like Ferguson is an unbelievable wide receiver right now in year 2, shattering all expectations. But these dudes are surviving on the outside, blocking as well in the run game, in pass protection. And I think that when you look at the position for the Dallas Cowboys, the ability to do it all is something that, yeah, we got it with Jason Witten, especially when he was at his peak. But the Cowboys have searched for that outside of Witten for a very long time and haven't been able to find these well-rounded tight ends. And I think Ferguson is that guy. You hope that Hendershot is able to stay healthy and show you something. And then Schoon is going out there. He's playing special teams. He is a fantastic athlete as well. You see him getting in on the offense a little bit as well. And then even Sean is out there, at times and playing really good football. So I just think that they have 4 guys who can go out there and contribute.
Yeah, and to that note, Sean McEwen officially on IR, so you won't see him for the next 4 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
which is a bummer because I think he really held the fort down for Peyton since Peyton's coming off of IR. This is his first
It's
game
good we got
back.
him back.
Yeah, so happy to see Peyton back there with his guys. But let's switch gears. Let's talk a little bit of defense here. And I think one name really comes to mind when you think of the Cowboys defense last night. That is Stephon Gilmore, who was called an old man. 33 years old. Imagine being called an old man as a 33-year-old by a 26-year-old. Absolutely insane.
He's
Football age
old.
is so weird.
He's old.
So
He's
he's not
real old.
old.
For a corner,
No.
33 is old.
We're not going to get into what's old when we're talking football terms because as a 28-year-old who's like pretty much feeling 30 at this point, we're not going to talk about feeling old, okay? He's not old.
Regular age and football age are completely different.
We're talking football age right now. We're on a
Yeah, yeah,
podcast.
and in football age, like 28 is not old, like in the grand scheme of things. But in football terms, a 33-year-old corner is AARP, Walker, Kane, maybe has one of those things that drive you up the effing wall.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
it's that old.
Life
And
alert.
to play at the level that he is at 33 is unbelievable, because this is not a defense where you're sitting back at 8 yards and sitting in cover 3 leverage all the time. No, he's playing cover 1 against the other team's best player most often. So it is amazing that he's not just playing well, but that he's surviving out there at all.
And I think that also goes to show just kind of how well he takes care of himself. And we talk about this so much, but I think he's just yet another example of how Dan Quinn can get these older veteran players who maybe weren't as productive as they were in their vintage years, right? And they come into this scheme and they almost find a home because they feel so comfortable in what Dan does with them and how Dan utilizes them and how he schemes them. And I think what you're seeing now is just this incredible progression from Stephon Gilmore that you waited to see, right? And given Trayvon Diggs being out for the season played a large part in that. Deron Bland with being Mr. Pick Six and doing what he's been doing, breaking NFL records and making history. You didn't expect to see Stephon kind of have a moment like he did last night, especially against the Eagles. But what I really like about it is that the guys truly embrace him in that locker room. Anytime, whether it's offense or defense, even special teams, they tell you about stuff that Stephon Gilmore has taught them. Very similar to Brandon Cooks.
Yeah.
Just 2 off-season acquisitions that continue the gift of giving. We are in the holiday season. You want to talk about gift that gives and gives over and over again. Brandon Cooks, Stephon Gilmore. It's absolutely phenomenal to see what he's able to do. He led the defense last night in tackles. He had 9. But the biggest takeaway from this Cowboys defense, which was very different than the last time these two teams met in week 9, was the forced fumbles. Stephon Gilmore had himself one, Donovan Wilson and Marquise Bell. Ring the bell. And not only that, did they have the forced fumbles, but they also recovered all of them. I think that's such a big thing here, too, is because it was so interesting last time these two teams met. I remember we were sitting on here and we are talking about where were the turnovers? Where was the pressure on Jalen Hurts to create turnovers? And this was such an emphasis going into this matchup. And Dan Quinn talked about it earlier in the week. Minimizing explosive plays was obviously an emphasis. And then creating turnovers, whether that meant in the term of forced fumbles or interceptions, but Jalen didn't have a chance to air it out. So, I mean, this Cowboys defense did everything you want them to and more. But what were some things that stick out to you?
I mean, I think it's kind of what you talked about a couple of weeks ago with the Cowboys being opportunistic and creating turnovers. And I think, there are some teams in the NFL that do a better job at going in attacking the football. I mean, if you give up a play, you give up a play. I think the thing that we like the most about the Dallas Cowboys is after they give up a play, the play is not yet over. And we saw that yesterday. There were a couple of catches. Devontae's catch was a big one, and he just got the ball punched out, and it is what it is. Those could have been, probably not game changing because the Cowboys just legitimately dominated the Eagles, and like Dak Prescott said, could have put up 50 if they would have actually played well offensively in the second half, if they wouldn't have kind of taken their foot off of the gas. But I think when you look at this team defensively, it's the ability to be opportunistic and to be aggressive. And I just think that it's a team that is so much better when they're able to play with the lead, because then that pass rush can really pin their ears back and get after it. And I think that when you see that, it makes you think, should we take the ball to start the game? Because everybody likes to defer. And the Cowboys are one of the teams that really like to take the ball every once in a while. And I just think that getting out to a lead, allowing this pass rush to do its thing, and then trying to get that lead, and then going after the opposing offense is really where this defense is at its best, when it's able to attack.
Yeah, I like the quicker start too that this defense had, because I think that was my biggest gripe going into this game was I wanted Jalen Hurts to feel that pressure out of the
Mm-hmm.
gates, and they absolutely they did it. They passed the test, A+ for allowing Jalen Hurts to get so deflated so quickly in this game, and that's hard to do. Jalen Hurts, I will give him credit where it's due. He handles pressure pretty well normally. It's just, man, this defense is good. This defense is good. They're not going to give you any breathing room in this. And you were talking about the pass rush. Obviously, we have to talk about Micah Parsons' flu game. He's able to play like that with the flu. Before the game started, we got an email from Cowboys PR stating that he was added to the injury report for an illness and that he was still going to be active for the game, but everyone was panicking, everyone was freaking out. And Mike Parsons really came in and said, guys, do you know who I am? um, if he plays like that with the flu, I don't think we have any excuses today as humans to not do anything, truly, because Micah Parsons continues to be just an absolute menace. In this game alone, let's see, he only, and preface this by saying stats don't mean everything. He had 2 combined total tackles, 1 sack that took away 7 yards there, 1 quarterback hit, and then that tackle for loss with that sack as well. But Micah Parsons, phenomenal, and I can't believe he was sick and he was playing like that while he was sick. Um, Dalton, real quick before we switch gears to next week, special teams, we can't go without mentioning our guy, Brandon Butter Aubrey, who is now 30 for 30 in the season, the first time in NFL history that that has happened with a kicker. And he became the first kicker in NFL history to score at least 59-yard field goals twice in one game. That has never been done before. And Brandon Aubrey did it with ease. Automatic is the word that comes to mind when I'm thinking about Brandon Aubrey, at least. I just want to formally say on here, LOL at all of us for ever doubting Brandon Aubrey, because it's absolutely insane what this guy has been able to do.
I'm gonna continue to doubt. I'm gonna continue to doubt because it's working. It's working. Just let me deal with my process. Let me deal with my process until we get into the playoffs and he doesn't go 0 for 5 on PATs and he doesn't miss a couple of kicks in the divisional round that help us lose the game. Us, as in the Dallas Cowboys. I don't play for the team. No, I'm going to continue to be a hater, even though he has been literally perfect on field goals. Even though when I watched the game today, I thought, damn, this is a kicker that I legitimately respect. I lost a little bit of respect for myself in that moment while I was thinking that. But when you hit a, 60-yarder, 59-yarder, 45-yarder, a 40-yarder, and like none of them are even in question. The dude is, you're right, he's just automatic. And I'm going to continue to hate because my hate is fueling him to make these field goal kicks. I'm convinced.
That was, I'm trying to think of the word.
I
It's
hate kickers.
it's giving very anti-hero over here on this side of the podcast. And it's you. Hi, you're the problem. It's you. It is. Real quick about Brandon Aubrey, and then we'll switch gears here. Is the thing about Brandon Aubrey is I really, although in those moments where he's scoring that 59-yard field goal, that 60-yard field goal, the 45-yard field goal, the 50-yard field goal, you want the Cowboys offense to be scoring touchdowns. I think it's just absolutely key to point out how much faith Mike McCarthy and that coaching staff has to send Brandon Aubrey out there not once, but twice to make that kind of field goal range, 59 yards and 60 yards. And here's the thing, being at the Star every week, we don't very often see Brandon Aubrey, and we definitely don't get to see him kick during practice when it's open. But we do always ask him when we see him, like, "Hey, what's the longest you've kicked? We don't get to see you, you know, and does it change indoor to outdoor?" We always talk to him about that. And it's just so funny because he's mentioned kicking 60-yard field goals like nothing. And this was weeks ago. This was something that he's mentioned. And he even has gone on to say that there's been a few times where it's been even longer than 60 yards. And it was funny last night during the kickoff when he kept dinking the goalpost. I'm like, can somebody remind Brandon Aubrey's not kicking a field goal from the way other side of the field? He's doing a kickoff situation. So Brandon Aubrey deserves his flowers. He's making NFL history with each kick. And I'm proud. I'm really proud of this 28-year-old guy who didn't even play collegiate football and what he's been able to turn his career into. So good for Brandon Aubrey. We stan Brandon Aubrey. All right, Dalton, let's switch gears. And your Dallas Cowboys are, like I said, 10-3. They're going into week 15 of the season. I cannot believe how fast that flew by. I know that was not a pun to fly, Eagles fly. They will play the Buffalo Bills, who are 7-6 this next Sunday. Very interesting matchup. Um, this is the game that I think when we all saw on the schedule, we were like, oh, December football, cold. No thanks, don't want to go to that game. What is your take now that the Cowboys are where they are? The Bills are where they are. Josh Allen's gonna Josh Allen, you know, whether that be good or bad. What is the biggest thing you want to see from this Cowboys team going into this matchup?
A win. A win. It's not going to be a fun game. Yes, the Bills are, I say, only 7-6, but this is a team that has the fifth best scoring differential in the NFL. They've beaten teams by 104 points this season. The Cowboys are number one at 188. But the Bills have played a pretty difficult schedule, and they've been through a lot this year. They lost Matt Milano. They lost Trayvon. They lost Tre'Davious White. They lost Daquan Jones in the interior. All those guys in like week 5. The defense completely fell apart after that. And we have to remember that Josh Allen is kind of playing like an MVP caliber player this year. And I know that there have been interceptions. There will always be some interceptions. There will always be some fumbles with Josh Allen. He is so freakishly good outside of those interceptions, outside of those fumbles, that he produces elite offensive numbers, analytics, despite the turnovers. That's how much of an unfair advantage this 6'5", 250-pound behemoth of a man is. He'll screw up. You know, the Cowboys might be able to poach an interception out of him. Deron Bland, you are up, my friend. But he is a very good football player, and it's not just him anymore. And for a long time, it was just him. But James Cook is playing some really good football, and that offensive line is finally figured out how to run block in the year 2023. So it is a pretty complete offense, and it is a defense that has started to figure things out without some of their best players. And so I think out of all of the games remaining, I think Miami's got to be the one that scares me the most, just because that offense is so potent and that defense is playing so well right now. But the Buffalo Bills might legitimately be the second best team in the AFC right now. So it is going to be an absolute slugfest in New York, and I'm excited for it.
I'm trying to look up right now the weather forecast that the Cowboys could be dealing with, because that does change how they'll have to scheme this entire game. And usually at the start, when the Cowboys are practicing, they practice both indoor and outdoor, and then they do different little things when they know they're going to be practicing outdoors. As of right now, it says a high of 46, a low of 38, and rain could be in the forecast. And mind you, this is Monday morning. Weather forecasts are subject to change. We know that. But if there's rain in that forecast, that passing threat that the Cowboys need to have in this game definitely could be impacted. I was just looking too on its inside edge for the stat. It says the Cowboys have run successful plays on 50.4% of pass attempts this season, the third best in the NFL. The Bills have allowed successful plays on 48.8% of pass attempts this season, the third worst in the NFL. So that would be a favorable matchup for, again, another pass-heavy game. However, if there's rain in the forecast, definitely change how
seeing a
things
9% chance of rain right now. So that's not bad.
It's not bad. It's not bad, but it also does make it colder. The air temperature will feel colder in that sense as well. So, just saying, might not actually rain, but the moisture could make everything feel colder. Former weather forecaster here. I'm just thinking ahead when it comes to weather. And something I do want to make note of is I just talked about how the Cowboys practice a little bit differently when they know they're going to be outside in nature, if you will. And something that Jake Ferguson specifically does is he'll always go work off to the side with Lunda Wells. They have this big bucket. It's just a big bucket of ice water. And all the tight ends do this, and I've talked to them about it, but they stick their hands in this bucket of ice water, pretty much get their hands frozen solid, put their gloves on, and then they start learning how to catch balls with their hands pretty much numb from that ice water at this point. And then they'll dunk their gloves in the water, make their gloves wet at some point, and then they work that as well. So anytime they're going to be outside, rain or not, that's something that they do that I think is a little fun tidbit for you.
The new ice bucket challenge. Dallas Cowboys
You know
style.
what? You know what? Let's not bring back the ice bucket challenge. That was
No.
Man, that was a good 2013, 2014? What a throwback.
Yeah.
That's we're old. Okay. Anything else you want to throw out about this game coming up?
No, I don't think so. I think it's going to be a fun one. You have two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL facing off, and two really good offenses. So I'm excited for it. I mean, when you look at Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, you kind of thought that that was going to be a lower scoring game because the Chiefs' offense just isn't really playing all that well right now, and so I think you're going to get the action this week with Buffalo and Dallas, and I'm really excited for it.
And real quick, because we forgot, who was your PF MVP for the week 14?
I think I have to give it to the entire Dallas Cowboys team for absolutely dominating the Philadelphia Eagles. I think now it's Brandon Aubrey. It's Brandon Aubrey.
Hater, 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 hater. I'm going to give my PF MVP this week to Stephon Gilmore because old man's got moves. You can call him old if you want, but he's looking like his vintage self. He's absolutely making his impact felt. And now you have to scheme against a Deron Bland, Mr. Pick Six, and a Stephon Gilmore, just making that Cowboys backfield absolutely secure. Jordan Lewis also on the come up as well to instill fear in any opposing offensive coordinator that has to scheme against them. You love to see it. Not only that, but a locker room leader, a good guy, aside from football, great to have conversations with, and very football smart. So, Stephon Gilmore, you are my PF MVP for the week. All right, Dalton, where can people find you if they want to tweet you all of their random Christmas tree photos this week?
Ooh, yeah. Dalton B. Miller on X parentheses formerly Twitter.
All right, I'm at Jess Navarez _ on X/Twitter and Instagram. So if you want to call us, beep us, if you want to reach us, you know where to do that. Dalton, next time I see you, hopefully the Cowboys will be 11-3 and we'll have another Victory Monday to celebrate. Until then, have a great rest of your week. Guys, don't forget to give us all 5 stars with your rating wherever you listen to your podcast. Leave a nice review. Let us know how much you love us and appreciate us and how much you love Taylor Swift. That'd be great too. All right, guys, have a fantastic week. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.